So I never wanted to open the restaurant. I mean, at the time, I didn't have real experience running a restaurant. I knew how much work it would probably take and the high likelihood that it wouldn't succeed. So how did I go from that point to 6 weeks later throwing the opening party for my first restaurant? That's the story I want to tell in today's episode. Welcome, guys, to another episode of The Nigerian Kitchen. And technically, I am back in the tiny Nigerian kitchen. It's just here to the side. You probably recognize the picture in the background. And we are in season 1.5. So yes, it's not the normal episodes cooking up Nigerian dishes or traveling around the world, sampling food from other cultures. This 1.5 season is really a chance to just kind of look back at the period between my first upload, which is 9 years ago, to this point in time, and kind of looking at some of the things that have taken place in that space of time. And so today's story is, how I accidentally opened a restaurant in Shanghai. I say a restaurant, my first restaurant actually, in Shanghai. Let's start the story. So I moved to Shanghai in China about 9 years ago, in 2010, to teach. And as much as I love Chinese food, I have to say after a few months of being there, of course, I started to miss and crave some of the more familiar foods from back home. My mum's jollof rice. Guys, you know, right? If you're Nigerian or you have jollof rice, you know how much you miss that. But that was something I could try and cook myself at home. But there were other things like, I don't know, a good British fry-up. I just couldn't find anywhere that did it really well. Invariably, the sausage or bacon just was not up to scratch. So there were friends who encouraged me. I'm like, look, you're into food. Why don't you try making your own sausage and bacon? And I'm like, okay, cool, fair enough. And I started making it, and before I knew it, it just grew. And what was something that was supposed to be on the side ended up keeping me as busy as my day job. So I got to a point where I had to make a decision. And that decision was, do I give up the security of my job? And I'm the kind of person who likes that. I like knowing and having a career that I'm working in. Or do I kind of take a risk and jump and try and make this business a proper business, which is to supply and sell sausages, gourmet sausages. So I was in a bit of a dilemma because, like I said, for me, I'm not that type of risk taker. And during the time I was contemplating, a good friend of mine, and we'll call him Mitch, that's not his real name, but we'll call him Mitch, had his own restaurant, approached me with an offer that I thought was too good to give up. And essentially he said he was opening a second restaurant space, a much larger space, and his idea was to make it a kind of co-op space where there would be a butcher/deli counter area which would be run by myself. And then there'd be another area which would be a kind of a baker, and we had another mutual friend who'd come in and take that spot. He himself was a sommelier, so he'd run a kind of wine area, and then there would be a restaurant running within the space which I would be able to supply to. And I wouldn't have to pay rent. I was just like, whoa, now you don't get these kind of opportunities falling on your lap every day. It was like what I needed to really take that jump. And I just thought, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I put in notice at school. I'm a math teacher by background. And when I really thought about it, I'm like, actually, there's an awful lot of people in China that are very good at math. But there was a distinct lack of quality sausages and bacon. So, it was a hole in the market I thought I had to fill. So, I gave in notice. And I got to the last week of school, the last 5 days. I'm counting down. Literally, after the 5 days are over, the idea was to move into this space, start getting my machines in there and get everything set up. And maybe 2-3 weeks later, be in essentially a new job. I got to the Tuesday. I remember it really clearly. And next thing I know, I'm on a call with Mitch, discussing the fact that something has happened with his Chinese business partner. And he's actually had to close the first restaurant he had, and he's not sure what's happening with opening this new space, which, it was ready for us to be moving in and fitting out in like 4 days. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. I'm kind of like, just, okay, I guess try and sort out the problem you've got with your partner and get back to me. But I realized with 4 days left to go, I couldn't rely on that. I had to kind of come up with a new plan. I guess it just kind of dawned on me that at this stage, I really needed to try and find a space myself. Now, trying to set up a business properly in China, in Shanghai, is quite complicated. The easiest thing I knew to do was to try and essentially set up my own kind of restaurant space. It would be too difficult to get all the licenses you'd need to set up a butcher or a deli. But I knew other people who'd set up, small kind of eateries, cafes. So I thought, okay, I've got 4 days. I need to try and pound the pavement and try and find something. And so that's what I did. So every day after work, for the next 3 days, I would be going in the evenings, looking around the streets, calling friends if they knew of any openings. And you know what? On the Thursday night, I don't know if this just came out of nowhere or I'd never noticed it before. I'm talking literally 2 minutes from where I lived. I see this tiny restaurant space, and that was the thing. I'm looking for the smallest thing I can get because I want it manageable. I don't want to pay too much rent. And it was perfect, a hole in the wall. And yeah, it was vacant. And so I call up the number, or at least get a friend to help me call up the number, because it was Chinese landlords. And yes, it was still available, and they said I can come and see them the next day. So my last day at work on Friday, I zoom out of work as soon as we're finished, and I rush over to meet the landlords, and we meet, and yeah, they say it's available. Other people have shown interest, and yeah, if I wanted it, it was mine. Here was the issue. Actually, I'd given myself a short break. On the Saturday, I was due to fly out to take a break with some friends for a week. They couldn't guarantee that the place will still be available if I came back a week later. I literally would have to decide then and there and pay my deposit. So I did. I went to the bank, withdrew a load of cash, went back, paid my first 2 months and my deposit, signed the contract for this space for 5 years. I couldn't believe it. So then, yeah, I found myself then over the next week while I was away making plans. I had to get designs made for the space. Thankfully, I knew a really good friend who did me a massive favor, mates rates, helped me to do the interior decoration. I found contractors. They came in, renovated the space. I got staff, and yeah, within the space of 6 weeks, I had a tiny little restaurant space, hole in the wall, called Bad Boy Bangers, in this tiny kind of Chinese, very local neighborhood, and it was incredible. The year that followed was so hard. It's one of the hardest things I've done in my life, but I learned so much. I call it doing a real life MBA. I learned how to be a boss, which doesn't come naturally to me, having to make decisions with other people involved, right from the hiring people, how to get the right people, how to train them well, how to try and, live to the high standards that I feel that I have. Another major thing I learned was how important something like cash flow is. I've read about it and come across it so many times when I've read business books, but it's not until I was running my own business where it really hit. The business, to be honest, from day one, I was taken aback by how kind of well, in a sense, it did, in that right from the first month, right for the first month, I was making enough to pay my staff, to pay rent, and to pay myself a small amount. We'll get to situations where I'm like, I know there's money coming in, I'm owed money by clients, but yeah, I've got things that I need to go and buy and the money isn't there. How am I going to get through this, next type period? It was really, really interesting having to work through those things myself in real life, not just off the pages of a book and thinking about it theoretically. right through, I don't know, to doing interior design, designing menus, designing the coming up with the recipes of what we were selling in the restaurant itself. I also learned how to ask for help. I consider myself pretty self-sufficient, self-reliant, but honestly, this is one of the most difficult things I've done, and with that much of experience behind it, I had to rely on so many people. And I have to say, Shanghai was absolutely awesome for the network of other people within the restaurant trade who just were willing to really give lots of advice, share their knowledge, share their suppliers and places I could go to get things. And I really felt supported and plugged into this group. It was absolutely fantastic. And I wish I could say it had a super happy ending. But you know what? The restaurant ended up having to close after just a year of running. And people were really complimentary about what we were doing there. We had some really, there's that kind of dream you have where you have these loyal customers who come back time and time again because they love what you're doing. That for me was one of the best things about running the space. That, and also, like I said, being in a sense a boss, being able to provide employment and livelihood to other people. I know it sounds cheesy, but honestly, that for me was one of the most amazing things. I myself didn't make an awful lot of money from it. Being able to think, wow, because I've opened this space, I've got people who are working for me and depend on that job, for their lives. It was pretty amazing. And also trying to develop, them as staff was pretty special. So that was just a little taste of some of the stuff that happened over these 9 years, and particularly, actually, like I said, my time in China. I've got tons more stories, and over the next few weeks I will share a little bit more stories, like how I actually grew the business in the first place. I kind of skipped an awful lot to say I got to the point of having to decide to open a restaurant, but there was a lot that happened before and even after. I might go into a little bit more as to why the restaurant closed and how I ended up in the situation where I am now, which is living in Hong Kong, but having actually a much bigger restaurant that is still running now in Shanghai. So if you want to hear more stories, please leave comments below, ask questions about particular things maybe you want to know about my time in China, more if you want me to delve into more details about how I ran the restaurant and how I made that work. I'm happy to do future episodes. Leave comments below and questions. And of course, if you want to be alerted for when next episodes come out, don't forget to press the subscribe button and particularly the bell notification, because then you will be alerted when new episodes are out. And of course, please continue to show your love and support by smashing that like button. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time on the Tiny Nigerian Kitchen.